So there's lots and lots of thinking and discussion about finding and hiring the right real estate agent. That happens every single day. It's one of the most common questions that I get. But what do you do if you want to get rid of your realtor? So now that is a great question. Now, firstly, I am not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. This is what I've seen happen in the marketplace and some general advice and insight based upon that. So representation agreements themselves, they're legal contracts. So if you need actual legal help and advice, you definitely want to get an attorney. So hi there, I'm Michael Hausam. I'm an active real estate broker in Southern California. I first got into the business right out of school over 35 years ago. Mortgage business for about 10 years, and then I added the real estate license after that. I was still getting haircuts as long ago as that was. But what I am doing here with Fix My Realtor is very different. It is independent mentoring and guidance to help individuals control their own journey to buy or sell a home regardless of the real estate agent they hire. This is not about representation agreement or a sales commission. This is directly about helping people like you. So let's talk about how you'd go about firing somebody like me if I was your real estate broker. Now, of course, there could be a zillion different reasons why someone would want to fire or replace their agent. But typically, the reasons usually fall into one of three buckets. Number one, the agent did something completely wrong, violated the law or some sort of rules and regulations. Or maybe they didn't do something that they said that they would do as your agent and then failed up to live to all of the expectations that they had set. Number two, maybe you've determined that your agent is just subpar or generally not up to the task. Or lastly, number three, it's usually some version of, I just don't like them and I don't want them to be my agent anymore. Whatever the reason, it's first very helpful to understand the actual contract that you've got with that agent and all that the contract entails, especially regarding dissolving it. First thing you need to do then, get your contract and review it. Typically, most people just quickly go over the contract when they sign it and they hire an agent. And they pay very little attention to anything but just what's the commission rate. Now it is time to dig into all of the details. What are the dates? What is the commission rate? Who's responsible for what? What circumstances would require a commission to be paid? What are the cancellation rights? All of those things like that. And then also, depending upon how far along you are in your buying or selling process, you want to make sure that you understand the implications of whether or not there have been property showings, if there have been offers negotiated or issued, things of that nature. Because those sorts of things can generate a commission being due. And almost all real estate contracts, they have various avenues for strings to be attached that could result in you owing a commission even after a contract expires, even if you didn't end up buying or selling a house. Now, one incredibly important thing to understand is that in almost all cases, the representation agreement, whether it's on the buying side or the selling side, it's a bilateral agreement and not a unilateral agreement. In other words, both parties involved must agree to terminate the contract. If this is the case, and it usually is, an email that you send or a written notice that you send is not going to be sufficient. So please carefully evaluate the paperwork to make sure of the details that are explained about how you go about doing that and if two parties' approvals are needed. So my office manager, he just told me a story the other day. And it's something that happens all the time. So there was a buyer that had a contract with an agent and they sent a termination email, basically, you're fired. And then they went out and bought a house. but the representation agreement was actually never properly terminated, as it was bilateral and therefore needed the broker's approval. So after the sale closed, the entire thing went to arbitration over the commission amounts that were due. And this buyer ended up owing a 2.5% commission on the house that they bought to the agent and the brokerage that they thought they had fired. Couldn't finance it into the purchase price, couldn't borrow money to do it. They literally were going to have to write a check. So find out if it is going to take two to do this cancellation tango. It's a very big deal. Second thing you need to determine is who you actually have the contract with. In most cases, even in your mind, you hired a particular agent. That is not with whom you have the contract. You actually have a contract with a broker. So it is the broker's contract, and your agent, that's just their hired salesperson and representative. And furthermore, if this is the case, your agent couldn't even sign the release on the contract, even if they wanted to. It's the broker that must do that because the contract is literally their property. So this is a potential problem that you need to get around. You're going to need to get the broker to agree to cancel the contract. In other much more clarifying words, you're going to need to get the broker to willingly give up the agreement that entitles them to get paid a commission should you do a real estate transaction within the time frame specified. So regardless of what's going on with your thinking about why you want to fire them, you need to start by thinking about it from the other side of the table. What would make a broker willingly give up the potential of earning a commission from you? That's the question you really need to wrap your head around. So generally, there are three categories for this. The first one would be is if you had some sort of proof that the agent broke the law or a code of conduct or some sort of ethics or professional standards. Every single real estate board or association or membership or MLS across the country, including the state regulatory bodies, they have very specific practices and rules that must be followed. If you can demonstrate or convincingly argue a failure in any of these areas, getting the broker to release the contract shouldn't be much of a problem. And then in a case like this, a threat or even an actual report to the local or the state governing body, that could do the trick. Especially if you've got evidence or documentation. The broker is usually going to agree to release you rather than to try to fight you on it. And then the second level thing would be if the agent fails to do something that they promised to do. Again, evidence or some sort of documentation of the facts is ideal. I'm going to hold an open house this weekend from noon to 5, and it turns out they didn't show up and didn't let you know. That's kind of minor. Or who knows what it is, whatever promises they made. If they don't follow up on those promises and you can document that or some sort of argument that's convincing, that can be helpful. Now, bringing this to the broker, this isn't as much of a slam dunk as the previous option, okay? But if you can convince the broker that their agent failed to live up to the expectations that they themselves set, you're likely going to get a release on that. And then the third bucket, that's basically the catch-all for everything else. And this covers everything from we hate them to we decided not to move forward with buying or selling, and then everything else in between that. All of these things boil down to, they really didn't do anything wrong, but we still want out of the contract. Now, getting released from a contract in these sorts of circumstances, that is going to be much more difficult. A broker could just flat out refuse or could suggest replacing your agent with a different agent in that brokerage. I actually had this happen to me a couple of years ago. It's kind of embarrassing. So I was working with a seller that became extremely unhappy. I didn't realize it at the time. Shame on me. But even though they were the legal owners of the home I was hired to sell, it was her parents that actually controlled all the strings and the levers. Okay. And let's just say they had their own ideas about how it should have been done to go about selling their house. We did not get along. So they wanted out of the contract. But at this point, I had spent months getting the house ready to go on the market. We were literally already active in the MLS for sale. We were getting lots of activity. Basically, I had done about 90% of the job. And as you can imagine, I was pretty upset about it. In my mind, we were getting very close to the point where I was finally going to get paid for all of my months of work. But the thing turned into a complete and total nightmare. Now, ultimately, my broker refused to release the contract, and another agent was agreed upon by the seller. So they got rid of me, but they didn't get rid of Coldwell Banker Realty, but they did find an agent that they turned out to know and liked, and that agent ended up selling the house. This client actually made some very big mistakes when they reached out to the broker. Made it far more difficult than it needed to be to get rid of me. But here's the takeaway for you. Number one, do not act like a crazy person when talking to the broker and asking for a release. And I've seen this on both sides of the table, both consumers and also agents doing this. Years and years and years, I've watched this happen. People get totally upset and they go off. That is not going to help you. And it possibly leads to a defensive posture and then focusing on whatever it was that you said in the heat of the moment instead of the actual issue at hand. Makes it far more easy to focus on that than what you want. And the reality is that you as the consumer, you don't need to do that because you have a huge advantage. Real estate brokerages are public-facing service businesses, and any kind of negative review or perception can be very harmful to them. They'll go through great pains to avoid that sort of thing. I mean, you know the story. It takes 7 positive things to offset 1 negative. They're not going to want to do that. So if you remain calm, level-headed, and stick to the facts instead of getting emotional, despite asking for something that actually is going to be running contrary to the brokerage's interests, if you're calm and level-headed and you stick to the facts, you might just get the broker to just flat out give you what you want. Number 2, you also need to figure out who you're going to actually talk to first. Now, this is a tough one. Do you talk to your agent or do you go straight to the manager or the broker? Because oftentimes a manager or broker is simply going to do whatever the agent asks them to do. So if you can get the agent that you want to fire to support the move, you're likely golden. And this is some version of, hey, we're just not that into each other. Otherwise, maybe things have really devolved or they've gotten nasty. Then what's going to happen is you're actually going to have to go straight to the broker and talk to them. And then number 3, this is the third option. I kind of mentioned this earlier, and it's another avenue and kind of a last resort. Go to the local MLS or the state association to file a complaint. Now, they don't actually have the power, the local Orange County Association of Realtors, for me, or the California Association of Realtors, or the National Association of Realtors. They don't actually have the power to force the broker to release the contract, but there's a pain in the ass factor for them of having to deal with the complaint and all that entails. That could work in your favor. You could also file a direct complaint with the state regulatory agency. In California, that's the California Department of Real Estate up in Sacramento. They oversee everything related to real estate, and it is so easy. dre.ca.gov. First button on there is file a complaint. I promise you that will get somebody's attention. And then, kind of along the same vein, and because a representation agreement is a legal contract, you can also get an attorney involved. And sometimes, and this is obviously if things have devolved, right? It's not just we had difficult words one afternoon. But if it gets to that point, sometimes a letter from an attorney is more than sufficient. That's another thing, pain in the ass factor. Nobody at the brokerage is going to want to deal with that. However, most contracts have arbitration or mediation clauses buried into them. So it's actually a rare thing that you could actually directly sue a broker about something like that. So you want to make sure you understand the wording, and whatever attorney that you're going to engage to write a letter or have a conversation, that they understand it too. Again, and that part comes down to the pain in the ass factor, or being a publicly facing entity. That is likely going to play a role to help you and to get the broker to relent to release the contract. Bottom line, if you want to get out of a contract, there's a handful of different ways to go about doing it, but you have to be wise. Otherwise, you're really just left with two other options. And neither of them are great if you want out of a contract. Number one, make the brokerage a cash offer to buy yourself out of the contract. That's one way. The second way is you just wait it out. Look at the paperwork. What's the expiration date? And you got to count days on the calendar. That's the way to do it. Unfortunately, if you can't get anybody to release the contract, those are the only two options that you've got. Now, let me take a quick second here and explain to you kind of where this topic came from and the context of it. Obviously, it's a question that comes up, but even more importantly, this is one of the lessons that is in the reference library vault in the Fix My Realtor Advantage program. The Advantage program is Fix My Realtor's simple shortcut that I've created to help people control their own real estate journey so they can avoid costly mistakes to buy better or sell smarter, regardless of the realtor they hire, or even if they don't hire a realtor at all. Because the truth is this, and you're not going to hear this from any of the real estate brokerages anywhere. If you are not controlling your own real estate journey, somebody or something else is going to. Now, every single week, I do a live workshop that will show you exactly how you can control your own real estate journey and why the real estate industry does not and cannot help you do that. So if you are thinking of buying or selling a home in the $500,000 to $2 million range, and you are not 100% confident that you know exactly how to avoid costly mistakes, then this workshop is for you. There is way too much money on the line for you to risk guessing or just hoping things work out great. You are the one that needs to be in control. The next video that's going to come up here on YouTube is the last workshop that I did. You can take a look at it. Also is a link for more information on the workshops themselves, where you can figure out what the details are and register for the one that's coming up this coming Wednesday. Thanks for watching. If you have any further questions, put those in the Facebook or YouTube comments below. I check those constantly and I'll get back to you. Have a great weekend.